All right, welcome to another episode of Serious Though. I'm sorry I missed last week, had a lot of things going on, but we're going to get better on this. We're going to actually do more episodes. We're going to do 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So give you more content so that way we can all collaborate even more often. We're going to jump into something totally different this week like we always do on Serious Though. Let's jump right in. All right. This week I wanted to talk about something called change. A lot of people have change in their life. We do things differently. But I just wanted to hit on it because of, sometimes when you do change, sometimes people don't respect your change. It seems as though people tend to gravitate towards you in most cases to try to help you or try to make you better or try to help you get over something or if you have a vice that you're using, they'll try to help you stop your vice. And they'll be, in most cases, they'll be there to try to lift you up, which it's a good thing, right? But you got to be willing to accept that change, right? Because sometimes you may not be ready. You may be in a dark place or you may be in a happy place or you're comfortable where you're at, even though you may not be financially independent. You may not have the job you want, but you have other things that bring you joy in life. So you're content, but people may see you as not being, the person that you were in the past. You may have been the top football player, top person, valedictorian, or you had the best grades or whatever like that. But it didn't turn out that way. But you're content and you're happy with what you have going on in life. And people tend to want to help you get better and do things differently, even when you don't want it, right? Think about that. Serious though. That's one avenue of it. Now, the good part about when you do change, just say, money status changes, your job changes, you become an entrepreneur. But when you were growing up, you didn't have anything, no aspiration to do anything. You were, maybe laughed at, or maybe you were life of the party, or you were, someone that did mischief stuff. You got in trouble a lot and stuff like that. And based on all those things you did that were bad, you turned out and good because you had a lot of experiment, trials and tribulations, they call it, in your life. And so you decided to use those as a guide to do better. And so you become an entrepreneur or you get the job that you want. And when you get that, people don't respect you as much as they do when you're doing bad. Let's think about that. Serious though. So you're doing good. You got a great job. Your money status is good. Not saying you're rich or anything like that, but your money status is different from when everyone knew you. And you're not getting in trouble. You're doing everything the right way. Or you could be an entrepreneur. You got your own business products and stuff like that going on. And people look at you like, oh man, he or she thinks they're the best. Or he or she doesn't remember where they came from. Or they don't want to see you be successful. You tell them, hey, I got these products out here. You want to check them out? And they may bring up some old stuff of old things that you used to do and be like, yo, you want to go to the club or you want to hang out and wild out? And you're like, I'm talking about products, but you're talking about doing something else. They're still trapped in that time warp of you leaving that lasting impression on them, wanting you to be that person that you were in the past and you've grown. How do you handle that? People not respecting your change when it's positive. You ask them to buy products or do something from you and, there's all kinds of things going on and they tell you they're too busy or they don't have time to do anything. But you always think back when you were doing bad, everyone was there for you and wanted to tell you what to do and how to get things right and stuff like that. And you finally got them right. And they're just like, okay, you don't remember us. And I don't think it's a matter of not remembering where you came from. I think sometimes as people, we tend to move forward. I heard this before, it's just like a rocket goes up to space. A rocket goes up into space. It needs some boosters and stuff on the side to get to the altitude, the right one. Eventually those pieces fall off, but the rocket got to still keep going. Just think of yourself like that. Or it could be that, you had a vice. Maybe your alcohol was your vice. And then eventually you realized that alcohol was making you be a person that you really wasn't. People love it. You were the best. You were fun to be around, but it wasn't you. What happens then? You definitely got to find new friends and stuff like that, but we're not going to get too deep into that part. You definitely got to do something different. And when you change that vice, say you stop drinking, just stop. And then you tell your friends that haven't seen you in a while and they're just like, hey, let's go out and party. And you tell them you don't drink. And they said, well, you done it before and you started back up. And you're like, well, I did mess up before, but this time I'm dedicated to it. And people sometimes they're like, yeah, okay, come on, let's go. How do you handle that? People have to respect the things that you do. It's the manner that you bring them up and the way you talk to people to help them understand that you're not the same person. The advice that you had before is null and void. You don't need it anymore. You moved on. Could it be your relationship status? The relationship status was, you might have been wild and doing all kinds of things. And then eventually you decide, hey, I just want to do one thing. I don't want to be in 10 different relationships. I want to be one person. Are you still the same person to those people that know you when you had 10 different relationships? They can't see that. They can't see the change. People don't want to see your change because that lasting impression that you put on them. Only way they're going to see your change if they grow in themselves. So when they don't respect your growth, do you have to deal with them? Should you deal with them? Serious though. Let's think about that. Are you too bougie? Because people tell you you're bougie when you're doing something that elevates you, makes you feel great. You're in a different mindset. I don't think you're bougie. I don't think you're trying to be above anybody else. I think that as time goes on, you have to elevate your mindset if you want to. Some people don't. I mean, that's fair and fine. But for the most part, I think you really have to decide to do something different in your life as far as gaining more knowledge, maybe stopping things that you were doing for so long, or maybe looking at, different career moves or even different education things. Religion. Maybe you wasn't into religion, then you got into religion. That to me, I think what happens with you draw people in when you do go to religion because people see that as a good thing, right? Or wrong. We're going to have to debate on that one. I might have to talk to somebody about that one. But also too, you change your friendship status. Say you go to a function and meet old friends, you got new friends with you, and they're like, oh man, what's going on here? These are not the same type of friends you had before. Yeah, I grew. Different caliber of friends. And then who doesn't respect your change? Is it just your friends? I would say no. I would say family is probably the main culprit that doesn't respect your change because they know you more than anyone else. They know you when you were little in most cases, when you were born, and the things that you've done in their life that you left that lasting impression. They still see you that way. You can't let that stop your growth. That's my whole mission to this change right here. You can't let someone in your family because, you've grown and you're more responsible and you have a family or you're doing stuff for your community or you're contacting family members that you never contacted before, but they don't contact them. That's deep right there. Serious though. Because sometimes that happens in family and people disown you because you're talking to another family member. We should never be like that. We should all have a way of collaborating and understanding each other to a certain extent and giving us our boundaries. So that way someone's growth can always keep going. You want to see people grow because the more you see someone grow in your life, the more opportunities you have to be better yourself because you can reflect on that person's struggles and try, if you want to, if you're motivated to do it, to do what they've done or take that path. You don't have to copy everything they do, but that's the whole thing. When you think about religion, religion is a book and you're taking people's trials and tribulations and then you're trying to mimic the good things to make yourself better. Put that down as a thought. Then you got to think about friends, family, or in your relationship. You could be in a relationship and, the person meets your representative at the beginning or they meet you, but then you change into a representative or vice versa. That could happen. And sometimes that's not good, because you met someone a certain way and they're used to being a certain way in a relationship. And then you decide to, you want to be someone totally different. That's fine. But it may affect that person that you in that relationship with heavy. So you always got to think about that when you're making these transitions and changes in life, that it doesn't just affect you. It affects, I'm talking about relationship wise, not family wise. Relationship, it affects the person in your relationship, especially if you want to be with that person in life. If you don't want to be with them, then, do whatever. I think you should include that person in on your changing and the things that you want to do differently just to get their take on it. Not saying that they can direct you into the direction that you want to go, but it's always to get some feedback and you take that feedback how you want it. You don't have to accept the feedback. You just have to be willing to listen to the feedback. If you're in a relationship, you're changing, you stop making Kool-Aid, serious though. And now you're drinking just natural juice. Are you bougie? I mean, that's a simple analogy I just want to throw out there, but you can think about it on your own. What things have you changed differently? And maybe your partner or somebody in your relationship is saying, hey, I don't like that. Find out why. That's the hardest question to ask someone because it's an open-ended question and you're saying, hey, why don't you like me like this? Or why? But then when you ask that why, you got to be willing to accept the answer that they give because it can be heavy. It can be mind bending. So you got to be able to say, okay, I asked the question of why they acting this way. Now I got to be willing to accept the answer that I'm going to get. Because I think when you're in a relationship, that's probably the most important person to, how can I say it? Not just accept your change, but see your change, and then if you change for the bad, remember we're going to bounce back and forth. If you change for the bad and that person's trying to help you, in some cases, I would say most cases, you definitely should accept that help because they see you more than anyone else if they're around you, especially if you live together. And they're just wanting to see you do better and wanting to do things the way they know you can do them. Because we all get in a rut or we all get in a funk or whatever you want to call it to where we, sometimes, we're not motivated or we just forget about it. But we got to come out of that because when you come out of it, it's almost like the sun coming up over a hill. It's like a beacon of light that you just amaze yourself. You got to amaze yourself no matter what. And then have you had a request in life for change? Like maybe someone asked you to change, man. So maybe your parents or your friends, relationship, or someone asked you to change. Do you ask why? Do you ask how I can do it? Do you ask, are you going to help me do it? Those are some questions that I would ask if someone's right now facing that, where someone's telling you, hey, you need to change. Okay. How do I need to change? Why do I need to change? How are you going to help me? And then you got to think about once you get those answers, how's it going to benefit you? It all boils down to it's for you no matter what. Don't ever change for someone else unless you feel as though those things are going to benefit you in the long run. Serious though. If someone asks you to change and you do change, someone always said you can ask someone to change or do something differently, but doesn't mean it's going to come out to the outcome that you expect. Put that down. You can tell them, hey, I want you to do this, or I want you to do this differently, or I want you to make the Kool-Aid with less sugar. They may make it with less sugar, but it may be bitter now and you don't like it. So you got to really receptive to people not accepting it, because even though they may request it, doesn't mean you're going to come out the way they want it. What do you do then? Do you change again? Do you say forget about it and revert back to who you are? I say you do what you're comfortable with. Like if you change into a new person as far as being more responsible, if you're financially different, if your career change, if your, relationship status change, or your vices, you have less vices, and you feel good about those, but it didn't come out to the way someone expected it to come out, you roll with it. Because the ultimate person that has to live with the change and accept the change is you. And when people don't respect your change or decide that you've done too much of changing, as long as it's not bad, I'm not telling you to change to the bad. We're just staying motivated here at Serious Though. The hardest thing is for someone to tell you to change and then you receiving it. So whenever you're reading your religious books, I definitely encourage you, or you're listening to how someone came from a journey and did all this stuff like that, definitely want you to look in the mirror and think about how you want to change, how you have changed, and how people accept it should never affect you. That's my whole part of this. It should never affect you of how people expect your change, because guess what? You're going to get new friends. You're going to get new family. When I say new family, you have family. Everybody has a multiple of family. You probably have your immediate family, and then you got family that you don't even know about. And in relationships, they do change. They really do. So it's not over because, they're not respecting your change. So remember that. You got to stay motivated. You got to keep going. You got to be actively listening and asking those who, what, when, where, how questions, because you get more answers that way. And you got to be willing to teach someone else that wants to, because there's always someone else out there that wants to do the journey like you did and do something different. Another part of people not accepting your change is when you're trying to maybe share your knowledge that you have. You may have been a person, like I talked in, previously, well-mannered. You were always into something, or you had tons of vices. And now you've grown and you're able to offer advice or even share, just say that you're doing well and, you have a nice place and stuff like that. And you want to just share with your family, to come see you. I don't know what it is. It could be jealousy. I don't know. It could be envy. It could be they're just not ready for that change. But that could be difficult on you as well. So you got to understand how to get over that as well, because you have all this knowledge, or you have all this new place or newfound career. Like sometimes celebrities and actors and all these other people say, hey, it's lonely at the top. I can believe that, because people that knew them or know you when you were down and out were on your team, but when you flourished like a rose, it's like, oh man, they got too many thorns. I'm good, or they're just too bougie, or I just I don't want to go to their place, or I don't want them giving me nothing because they came from nothing. I don't know how they know how to do that, or Or why would I get something from them? Because they just learned how to do it. Or those are some of the things people say. But you got to remember, change is scary. So just like you went through it, you got to sometimes, sit back and just think about it. Why is it? Once again, those questions, why? Why are they acting that way? And actually listen to them. Because when you ask that question, especially if you give somebody some positive feedback, make them feel good and make them open up, because that always works. Make someone talk about what they love and then ask them questions that you love, because they'll answer them because they're already in the love mode of question answering. And then when they answer the question, be ready to understand why they don't want to, come to your house, family, or why they don't want you to teach them how to, just say hypothetically, fix something in their credit or something like that, or build a new Lego. I always use Lego on the show, Serious Though. You got to find out why they don't want that. And you may not get the right answer. You may get a fluffer answer, or you may get something that's just to the point. Either way, with your growth and your knowledge, you have to be able to understand and break it down and ask more probing questions once they answer. As long as they're giving feedback, you got to be able to take that feedback, because then you'll understand why people do the things they do. The people that are old in your life. I shouldn't say new, because usually when you change and you got new people in your life, you gravitate to the people that you've become. So it's usually the people that are, been in your life for some time, and we established a time could be a day ago. And you set that time precedence. I am not a psychologist, so I can't, answer that, because some people are like, what's the time frame? I can't answer the time frame, but you know the time frame of the friends that you had, and how they're treating you differently because you're excelling. You may be excelling at school, and you may have been trash in high school or whatever like that, but now in college or trade school or whatever like that, you're the bomb. You're good. So remember, share your knowledge share your knowledge when someone wants to receive it, is the best thing I can say. So especially, and give you an example, say you go home and you know how to fix a car now, and the person's car is broke down. But every time you say, let me go look at it or see what I'm doing, they kind of jump to something else, or they ignore you or say something else, but that's jumping to something else. You got to be able to roll past that and say the person doesn't want your assistance. Okay, cool. But that you're establishing where your boundaries are with that person. And it could be that you got a big house, or even a smaller house, or whatever. You have a house and you just want them to come visit family. And they may not be able to see you like that because they don't want to see you in that mode, or they may think you're just too bougie. That's their thought, because they only remember you a certain way. Don't be mad at them. Understand them. Ask them why. Ask them those questions. Share your ideas. You may have ideas to improve something in your old neighborhood or at someone's house or something like that, because you're a builder now or something. Share them. But don't look for someone to accept your change until they're ready, or if they ever become ready. Those are just things that you could do when it comes to sharing knowledge, sharing ideas, sharing your space with someone after this episode. And we're going to go ahead and do more episodes, like I said, more often. Listen for the new ones, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Thanks for listening to Serious Though.